Hi, it's Tansel here. Now, a lot of people ask me, Tansel, how did you get into memory techniques, memory training? How did you improve your memory so much? What spurred you on? What was the inspiration? What was motivation? What got you involved in all of this? And it's a question I keep getting asked over and over and over again. So I thought I'd make a video about it, just so you don't have to ask me again. Or, when I get up to speak next, just say, look, check out this video. I don't want to go through and explain all of it. But seriously, the reason why or how I got into it was, firstly, I didn't believe that you could improve your memory. I was actually a big skeptic. So I used to watch a lot of late night television back in the day. This was early 2000s, and I used to see a lot of people memorize people's names in the audiences. So late shows like David Letterman, I used to watch a lot at night, and I'd see people get up, get people up in the audience and start memorizing their names, all these details. Then they'd recite their names perfectly, and then they'd be tested on numbers and a list of words. And I thought, this is too freaky. These guys just want to sell their cassette tapes. Because it was cassette tapes back then. They just want to sell them and make some money. So I thought they were, frauds and, scammers. And I thought, this sort of stuff doesn't really exist, because my memory was absolutely terrible. Right? I used to forget a lot of stuff. I used to write down a lot of notes and still forget what my notes were. I used to do a lot of post-it notes. Well, probably not as much as some people, but still no use. So I was absolutely terrible. And I got into memory techniques essentially, my final year of uni. And a friend of mine came up to me and said, look, Tansel, he was a few years below me at uni. And he said to me, look, Tansel, I can remember 40 random objects, back to front, any order. And I thought, no way, what, like those guys on TV? And I said, yeah. And I'm like, yeah, right. Well, I'm going to have to test you out then. So I got some words together and had to test him out. And surely enough, he memorized everything perfectly. And I didn't see him write down anything. And I thought, wow, this is quite amazing. How did you do it? Was there some sort of trick? How did you do it? And he said, no, it's fairly simple. It's just memory techniques. And I got it from a book. I'm like, great. What was the book's name? And he couldn't remember. The idiot. So anyway, he gave me the author's name, which was Tony Buzan, so you could check him out. So I went and bought a memory book by Tony Buzan. Little did I know it was a wrong memory book. The book I was meant to get was Use Your Memory, not Master Your Memory. So when I got Master Your Memory, I read through half the book going, how the hell do I apply this? So make sure you do get Use Your Memory if you do get the book. So I ended up buying the book months later and then started reading it. And I thought, wow, this stuff actually does work. I remember reading the first few chapters. It tests you out and it gives you all these numbers and words, and I did absolutely terrible. And I thought, how the hell am I meant to memorize a 12-digit number? It was ridiculous. And after reading the following chapter, I did. I thought, wow, this is quite amazing stuff. I mean, I could have learnt this 10 minutes at school. Why wasn't I taught this at school? So naturally, my curiosity grew more and more. And I delved deeper into it. I actually read more of the book. And by the way, I wasn't a really big book reader as well. So all throughout my schooling and even university, I barely ever read a book. I don't know how I got by. I did do IT as well. So I did arts in my first year, social sciences, and we had to read books from, Sigmund Freud and, Carl Jung, all these people. And I barely read anything because it was just too difficult for me. So I went into IT, which I always wanted to get into anyway when I was young, and didn't have to do any reading there, just all practical stuff. So that was pretty easy. So anyway, getting back to all of that, I never really believed you could actually improve your memory. So I finished the memory book and realized that there's so many skills and techniques out there that weren't taught at school. And I thought, wow, I've got a superpower now. I could now memorize not just a list of words, but random shuffle decks of playing cards and, lots of words, more than I could ever thought I could do. And, I started researching more on memory techniques in particular. So I get onto a powerful tool at the time right? This was back in 2002, and it still exists today. And a tool is called Google. So look it up, right? Google.com. I typed in memory techniques, and surely enough, websites came up. And I thought, wow, there's websites out there for memory techniques. Cool, I'll check it out. I remember one being sort of premium memory, or premium health memory, and mind tools. If they're still around, fantastic. I haven't been on them for ages, but these were awesome channels and websites to get your information from. So I learned a lot online. I started reading a lot of books. I even did a few courses here and there, not specifically on memory, but mind mapping. We used to have the Busan Centre here in Melbourne, Australia, and that was an amazing resource run by awesome people. So I got into memory from there. I researched a lot more, and as I was Googling more on memory techniques, I came across memory championships, and I thought, wow, this is really interesting. I came across the Australian Memory Championships further to the point, because there was world ones as well, and I said to my friend, look, let's enter this competition. We'll probably come last, but who cares? We'll have a bit of fun, right? And I thought, well, we're just two guys playing guitars in metal bands. How far can we get? But we're gonna have a bit of fun. We're both competitive anyway, so we started training together, and we started getting together in his bungalow, getting a whole bunch of words, printing them out, printing numbers, and just playing around and making a ton of mistakes. I mean, we weren't the greatest of memorizers, even though we've read books and practiced quite a bit. We were still pretty terrible, right? But we'd have a lot of fun. I mean, there'd be times where we'd be up in his bungalow at 4 a.m. in the morning, because we'd be playing guitars, and then for a couple of hours straight we'd be memorizing and then playing something else, and by the time we knew it, we'd done hours and hours of training and mucking around, and that was awesome. So anyway, the competition comes along. This was late 2002, and lo and behold, I came second in Australia, and my friend came third, and we broke all his memory records, right? And I was shocked, because I thought, well, I just learned these techniques not long ago. How does it happen that I'm able to become now second best in Australia, right? Or how can I break records when I've just sort of started training? And the common question I get asked is, how long did it take you from start of training to becoming, this record-breaking memory guy? And I said, well, let's look at it. I started around May 2002, around March, May, around there, because I was in hospital from February to March. That'll be another story altogether. So started around May, training, and the competition was in October. So May, June, July, August, September, October, about 5 months of training. But I really understood the techniques in a few weeks. So really, months of training were just executing and practicing the same thing over and over again. So it would have been numbers, names, all that sort of stuff. So got into the competition, we did really well. And because we did really well, something like that goes viral. And this was back in 2002. So, TV gets a hold of you, radio, newspapers, and we started doing, a lot of media. And they get you on shows like Channel 7 and Today Tonight and the news and whatnot. And the more and more people knew about us, the more people started understanding, wow, there's memory techniques out there. Even though most of the people saw it as, these guys are just memory freaks. Right? Which at the time I thought, no, I'm definitely not a memory freak, because I've still got a terrible memory. I just know how to use memory techniques. So anyway, the following year came around, and we went to the memory competition in Australia. Again, I came second, my friend came third. We still couldn't beat the number one person, which was, just a bit above our level. So anyway, it didn't matter. We had a lot of fun doing it, and we started training more and more. And as I was Googling memory championships again, I came across the World Memory Championships, and this time, instead of being in the UK, for once, it was in Malaysia, which was a lot closer to Australia. So I said to my friend, look, let's enter it. Again, we'll probably come last. There's going to be heaps of people around the world that are way better than us entering. Anyway, so we'll go to Malaysia in 2003, and the event goes for 3 days there, so it's a lot longer. Some of the events that were 15 minutes in Australia go for 1 hour. So for example, you had to memorize an hour just staring at numbers, with your neck all the way down, and it's very difficult stuff. So anyway, we go to Malaysia, do a lot of shopping. do about an hour of the competition, then some more shopping. We had a lot of fun in Malaysia. And, that little time we spent in the competition, we actually did really, really well. And there were around 70 odd people that have come all around the world. And out of the 70 people, in some of the events, I came 5th in the world, which I thought, wow, this is insane. How the hell does this happen? My memory idols like Dominic O'Brien and all these guys, I had beaten them in a couple of the events. And I thought, wow, this is, how does this happen? And to be honest, it wasn't so much about me and my work ethic, because by then my work ethic was still terrible. You hear about work ethic of champions and top people. I wasn't there yet, right? And so all I did was just have fun with these skills, and that's all I knew. Just having a bit of fun and just do what I can. And it got me 6 records out of 10 events which at the world competition. So in Australia, you have 10 events in the competitions, and out of those 10 events, I'd actually broken 6 records. So it was quite interesting what happened by going to the world event and trying to step up your game mentally. And that's what happened. And when we came back again, mobbed by more media and more attention, and realized that, wow, this techniques doesn't just work for us, it can work for anyone that applies them. So I sort of dedicated my life since then, since 2002. So it's been almost 18 years that I've been doing this, and trying to pass the message of memory training to everyone. Because if someone like me with a really average memory can get into it and achieve results, well, you don't have to be a memory champion. You just have to do some of the techniques to really change your life. And since then, when I started helping people, I started with students, because I thought, well, they're going to have the most learning to do out of everything. And I associated memory with learning, right? If you can retain a lot of the information, then you can go into exams, really pass this information, or pass the exam with the information you have in your head. So I started working with students, especially with dyslexic students, because I had a family reach out to me and I said, look, our kids they're just not doing really well, right? So I went and tested them out and gave them a little memory test, and they misspelled every single word that I gave them. And the words were like, the and egg. They misspelled all of them. I think egg was like EG. And these kids were, some of them were like 14 years old, right? So you shouldn't be making those mistakes. Anyway, I gave them a memory technique just to memorize a list of words, and I gave them a new list of words, and surely enough, they memorized everything perfectly. So the whole session took about 20 minutes. Their parents were shell-shocked, thinking, wow, they haven't been able to do that in a whole year, because they were going to a specialist, a memory specialist, for a whole year. And I thought, well, what the hell has this specialist done? They've been going there for a whole year and they can't even spell egg. I mean, that's disastrous, right? So in 20 minutes, just by using these memory techniques, they completely changed. And, only working with them for a few months, you saw the stark contrast of no memory techniques versus memory techniques. And, these kids were just amazing for what they achieved. So I started realizing that there's massive power in memory techniques. And the more and more I got into schools and universities and education centers, the more that people started realizing the power of this. And I started realizing, wow, it's got more to do than memorizing. There's a lot of other elements in memory as well, like being coordinated, being mentally agile, right? Being able to concentrate and focus. So I started getting requests to work in business, going to organizations and start running these time management, energy management, how to be more creative, innovative, and organization skills like mind mapping and speed reading. Speed reading I thought would be great in schools, but turns out a lot of people in organizations want speed reading because you have to acquire the knowledge and be able to use that knowledge. So speed reading became a big thing, and that was even more difficult for me to grasp because I found reading very difficult. So understanding how speed reading worked from a memory perspective was again life-changing for me. And instead of reading maybe one or two books in my whole life, I read my whole bookshelf. in essentially one day. And mind you, there was only 2 books, but I read them, in one day. And from then on, I mean, I've collected literally a room full of books, which was quite amazing for a non-reader, right? So these skills, I found great power in developing oneself, developing learning capabilities, developing mindset as well. And from then on, once I started learning and teaching memory for several years, I started, again, going back to competitions every year, but I kept missing out. I kept coming second every year, so it wasn't that great. And once I realized how memory techniques really worked, as in building the foundation skills, then I won every single memory championship event I entered, and that was 4 times in a row, 4 years in a row. And that had to do with really understanding what creates a stronger memory, what holds it together in place. And once I did that, the rest was all just execution. So it's the same thing as when I was memorizing the phone book, so which I went on to do years later. And I've also written a couple of best-selling international books as well. And I wrote those books in 10 days, so I'll do another post on that of how I wrote my best-selling books in 10 days. So I won competitions, wrote books. I even developed an app. This was back in 2010. And surely enough, the next day had over 10,000 downloads and over 100,000 downloads in a year on memory techniques. So, it's the excitement that really gets you in. So if you want to get into memory, get excited about it. And the only way to get excited about it is to experience the change that you get from memory techniques. And how do you do that? Well, go and learn some memory techniques. Watch this channel that I'm building up, because there'll be more and more lessons. Take it on board. Do some of the examples. Do a lot of the examples. Spend time with the strategies, because what will happen is that you'll start creating your own thinking around it. You'll start using the techniques your way, and guess what? You'll start learning your own way and acquiring knowledge a lot more easier, because at the end of the day, it's not just information that matters, it's what you do with that information, right? So where memory got me is essentially where I never thought I'd be. I never thought I'd be teaching people these skills. I was always an introverted IT guy, right? I'd be in the background doing something. But what it's enabled me to do is build up massive amount of confidence, and that's what you get from memory techniques, massive confidence. I became a super athlete in the memory field as well. I started realizing that I'm not just going to enter competitions, I'm going to smash competition, right? I'm going to do the very best I can, because I was able to achieve it with my workload, with the execution. So there's a lot that you can learn from memory techniques. Again, you don't have to be a memory expert or guru. You just have to get into it, because at the end of the day, once you know how this works for you and it's benefiting, you want more of it, because success breeds success. You want more of it, and then once you start getting more of it, you want to help people, which is what I'm doing now. I realized earlier on that, wow, if I can do it for myself, I can do it for other people. So that's why almost 20 years I've been training and teaching people, and it's been amazing. I coach now, I give speeches. Now in lockdown, I'm giving online speeches. So, it's quite amazing where organizations are getting you on into their Zoom sessions and Skype sessions and whatnot. And it's quite exciting to see people take on these skills and, realize that they can improve. I had a guy just a few days ago who suffered severe brain injury. And, just by using these techniques, he was able to do what he couldn't do for years, right? He memorized a massive list, even though it really took him a lot of effort mentally and he was drained afterwards, he still memorized everything perfectly. And when I mean perfectly, it was perfect. He didn't even miss a beat. Usually the average adult misses one or two. He got everything right. So, I see these cases all the time. So if you are wanting to start out, then, jump on these channels, subscribe, comment, share the video, because other people will get inspired as well. and hopefully learn these skills. Because like I said, once you have these skills, it's not just going to help you remember something. It's not about remembering. It's about developing self-discipline. It's about developing confidence in yourself so you can go out and achieve stuff. It does beat things like anxiety, depression, and all those things, because you're actively involving your mind. And those people that were living to an older age, they interviewed them and they said, "What are you doing to stay old?" And they said, "I keep my mind engaged." So think about that, right? If you want to live longer, do some memory training, right? Train your mind, have some fun, and keep it going. So that's my story anyway. I'm sure there's more I didn't talk about, but we'll check it out in the next video. Cheers.